myself. I'm Sophia. I graduated Wootton in 2022, this past summer, and I currently attend University of Delaware. However, I am part of this program. It's called the World Scholars Program. So it's a 4-year long program. And my freshman year, my first semester, I had to go abroad. So I'm currently in Spain, and I spent my first semester in Spain. And then I come back for my second semester. My sophomore year, I spend back in Delaware. My junior year, I go abroad again. And so for my freshman year, I had to pick, I could pick like 4 locations. There was Madrid, Athens, Rome, and New Zealand. But for my junior year, I get to go anywhere in the world that I want to study. And it ends with the senior year. We're back in Delaware, and we have this like spring semester symposium thing, which is where we're going to paper about like our experiences abroad. And it's essentially just to get everyone, like people, to get a more like worldly view of the world. It has honestly been such, I don't know, an amazing experience so far for me. So that's me. And that's University of Delaware. I can't really speak on University of Delaware too much. I've been to the campus for maybe half an hour collectively in the past year. But if you have any questions about like the application process, anything more about my program, let me know.
I'm a freshman at Georgetown. Yeah. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm currently a freshman, obviously like graduated from Wootton last year. I'm thinking of studying political economy and minoring in business. And is there anything else like that?
Oh, I don't know. By the way, I am double majoring in psychology and Spanish. I forgot to say that. Yeah, I don't know. I just talked about, I think that's pretty much it. At the campus size.
Oh
maybe?
yeah, so Georgetown,
size?
it's a smallish, medium-sized campus in the Georgetown neighborhood. So it's a little bit outside of like downtown DC. So it's a really nice like residential neighborhood. But when you do want to like get into DC, like it's very easy to be able to do that. The campus is kind of like your traditional college campus. Like there's like all the pretty architecture, and like there are obviously like dorms on campus and like things like that.
For Delaware, the school is like 20,000 kids. And I think you can walk from like walk the whole campus in like 20-25 minutes. There's a big area called the Green that I think a lot of schools actually have. It's just like a big like field. And I was there when it was raining and cold, but in the summer, and in the spring when it's nice out, people would just like lay out there, do homework, play, like little sports, whatever. So yeah. Do you guys have any questions on like Delaware application process, like how we like picked our schools, how we like, I know it's a hard time. I remember this time last year was a lot. I will 100% say that second semester senior year, I don't know if you guys are seniors or juniors, but second semester senior year was worse than junior year for me. It was a lot to focus on. So yeah, so if you guys have any questions, let us know. But as far as like school, I guess we start with that, very basic. I don't know how it is for Georgetown, but at least where I am, I go to St. Louis University, which is a university in Missouri, but they have a sister campus in Madrid, which is where I'm at right now. So, it's not, I think this is I feel like common news, but it's not like high school, right? You don't have like tests and quizzes all the time. I had, from majority of my classes, I had a midterm and a final. And then, yes, what's your question? Also, you guys can type it in the chat.
Cool. I actually have a question for both of you. So my question is about how often, or I guess like how often students study abroad at both of your schools?
Okay, so from my school, so I'm in a program called World Scholars. So it's, as I said, it's like a 4-year program. And so for Madrid, there's 50 out of freshman class. There are like around 50 students in Madrid. There's like 30 in Rome, like 15 in Athens, and 15 in New Zealand, I believe. And but that doesn't include just the kids who go semester study abroad. Like I met a kid from UMD who's a junior in one of my classes here in Madrid who actually went to Wootton. It was crazy. This campus is also really tiny, but I don't know. I would assume it's a really big number because at least for Delaware, where there's 20,000 students, and this World Scholars Program has been going on for a while. So I would say there's about 100 people with the program, but it's a 4-year thing. But just like studying abroad for a semester, I think that I don't know. I couldn't even tell you a number, but I know it's pretty common to do, especially if you're not like a pre-med major, because I know for some majors it's limited because like not every abroad location has all the classes that you need. But
Yeah, and for Georgetown, I would say a good number of people study abroad. I think the number is maybe like 1,000 per year, and the whole campus is like it's about 7,000 students total. So I would say at like any given time, there are like 500 students per semester studying abroad, and most people, at least at Georgetown, like to study abroad their junior year spring. That just tends to be like when things work out their schedule and when things work out with their different like commitments. I'll say for Georgetown, because Georgetown does have like a lot of focus on like international relations and international affairs. I think that might be why study abroad is slightly more encouraged at Georgetown. And Georgetown, like obviously they have a number of different like partnerships with like different like programs. So you can do is like study abroad pretty much anywhere. But I'll say that Georgetown has a campus, like kind of like a sister campus that Sophia was kind of like touching on for like UDelaware, but like a sister campus like in Qatar. So I know some people like to go study there and then all their credits transfer very easily. And they also have a villa in Italy that some people like to go take classes in during the summer. So those are the ones that like Georgetown directly like has like an institution, like it is Georgetown Qatar or Georgetown in Italy. But then they also have like different programs where like it's not directly Georgetown, but it is another institution that you can directly enroll in, and you can get some credits transferred towards your degree.
yeah, so for me, I'm not going to University of Delaware in Madrid. Delaware does not have a Madrid campus. And I think, so I just searched it up, 6,000. So it says 30% of University of Delaware students go abroad at least once. So that's 6,000 of the 2,000 people go abroad at least one time in their 4-year experience. For me, I go to St. Louis, which is a sister, like it's like a campus of another US school. But it has like a partnership with Delaware. So all of my credits transfer super easy. Like I had to fill out a form that gave like my ID and my number, like my ID, like my school and my name, and the credits will transfer no problem. So it makes it very easy to be able to take classes and stuff like that. And then for my junior year, when I pick a school, because I have to go abroad again. I have a lot more freedom, but I think still Delaware helps you out with like the partnership between schools to make the credit transfers more accessible and easier to do. Whereas like if you take a class and it doesn't transfer. So yeah. So I came into college as a psychology major. And I only declared my second major a couple weeks ago. Because I don't know what I want to do really, but I want to do social work. And I think that especially if I, stay in America, Spanish is a very useful tool to know for what I want to do. Educational, not in like a school sense. Like you learn so much about yourself, about other people. I was able to travel so I traveled throughout like all the different provinces of Spain. And then I also went to France and Ireland, and I'm going to be going to Germany as well. So you get to go to these places and it's so much easier access. Like these flights are a lot cheaper and are like an hour, couple hours max, versus like the 10-hour flights they are and $1,000 they are from America. But my point was that like being here has made me want to travel more. So after school, like I now am considering like traveling for a while and like volunteering in different programs before I like settle down and get a job, because in I don't know, it's very, we live in like, for a lot of people, we grow up, we see like our life from one area, but like going out and seeing it in different places, it's just very interesting. At least for me it was. So
Yeah, I definitely like feel that sentiment. Like personally, like I'm still like in the area because like Georgetown's in DC, but I've like ever since coming to college, you just get exposed to like such a different world. It's kind of like it's a cliche, but it is kind of life-changing. So I would definitely like it kind of reminded me, a lot of times your school will give you opportunities to like engage with different perspectives, and like you should take advantage of those whenever you can and just see what you can find. So for example, if your school, like I know Georgetown, sometimes they have like different opportunities where they will pay for you to like go to a certain place. So like I know study abroad, you do have to pay for it, but like it's either you're paying tuition at Georgetown or you're paying tuition at another school. But I know that there's some programs Georgetown has where like they will pay for you to go like spring break like somewhere, and like you pay nothing, but like you can go to Arizona and you can learn about immigration, or you can go to New Orleans and learn about like slavery and reparations. And so what I'm trying to say is that whenever you have opportunities to just like go explore the world, and your school is either paying for it or like they're making it very accessible to do it, I highly recommend it. It's like these 4 years or however long it takes you to graduate, it's like a really good time to like go out of your comfort zone and to learn new things that it's kind of harder to do when you have like a 9 to 5 job. So definitely like look forward to that aspect of college, and that, and like when you're doing your college search, I guess look for different ways you can expand your current like horizons.
this might be a hot take, but I think in MCPS and Wootton, there's a very big pressure on like getting a job and knowing exactly what you want to do. And what Shrutha was saying, like take the opportunity to explore. Like I came in like not considering taking a gap year after, my undergrad before my master's, like 100% getting a PhD, or like, I don't know, getting a job immediately right away. But like let yourself explore. Like what your age right now, what you need to do is find yourself, find what fuels you, and follow that. So if that's travel, do travel. If that's work, do work. Like if it's volunteering, if it's anything, like explore. And like a lot of these programs, like a lot of even like little clubs and stuff, little excursions, a lot of time they're free, funded by the school, or not super duper expensive. And they, surprisingly, funny story. So I did not tour any colleges. I did not have the time or the energy. It was just a lot. A lot was going on. So I didn't tour any school. I applied to 11 schools, and I got into most of them. And I got into Delaware at the end of December. And I was looking through my emails in March, because I don't know if you guys are getting it, but during the college process, you get like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails. And I was looking through my emails in March, and I found this email from mid-December talking about this World Scholars Program. And I like signed up and did the interview, like kind of as a joke, but like for fun. Like I didn't really think I was going to do it. And then a week later I got in, and then I committed to Delaware mainly because of this program, because I was able to travel, because traveling just like this, like would have cost so much more than being able to travel and go to school here. So it just giving me the opportunity to like do both. Like I feel like I would, like do my work, and then I'd also travel on the weekends. And I feel like that also teaches you a kind of like self-responsibility type of thing, because you get in a good balance of like, being studious, but also having your time to explore and really enjoy what you're doing.
Can I just ask a question? Is this free for all?
Of course.
You go ahead.
Yes. Of course, anybody.
I'm curious, first of all, are your classes in Spanish?
So some of them, I had 2 classes in Spanish. I'm taking a Spanish class. I got a seal of biliteracy in high school. So, I mean, like this class I'm in is not like basic level, but that class is taught in Spanish. And I also had a university welcome class, and that was a class about Madrid. And we would take tours around Madrid, in different areas. And we would get told the history, and our teacher taught us the history of Madrid in Spanish. Yeah. But
Very
you don't
cool.
have to. This is an American university. So like all of my other, like, I had our history class, and I had friends who had math classes, biology labs, chem labs. They were all in English. It's an American university. So there are English taught classes.
In general, do you feel like the people that people from Spain are friendly and welcoming of Americans, or like?
I'd say yes. All the staff has been very, very, like, staff here, they're all, Spanish. They've all been very, very welcoming and very, very supportive. The people themselves, yeah, 100%. There's a couple little culture shocks, like pickpocketing. Like my friends have had a couple, their phones stolen here. But there's a lot less gun violence. So, there's like pros and cons to that. But overall, like the culture of Spanish people is very welcoming. So like I've traveled a lot. I went on a couple solo trips, and I've had my hosts, like my hostel like owners have been very, very nice and very like willing to teach me about their culture. So yes.
Cool. Cool. And Shrutha, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
You're all good.
How do you say it?
Shrutha.
Shrutha. It's beautiful. How have you found people, whether from all over the country, whatever? What is the atmosphere, the culture, the personality of Georgetown students?
Yeah, I think Georgetown students, what I've noticed across like all the different like majors they tend to really care about like a certain like social issue. And I think that kind of is the nature of a school that's in DC. People do tend to like talking about politics, but you definitely don't need to like be considered like a Georgetown student. I will say one of the kind of interesting quirks about Georgetown is like obviously like Wootton is a public school, but then if you go to Georgetown, you'll see like there are like a number of like private school students. And I was initially like worried about like what that would be like, if they would be snobby, like things like that. But they're really just like, normal kids. Like you don't really like notice that on like a day-to-day basis. I'll say like Georgetown is like pretty diverse. Like coming from Wootton, it is like ever so slightly like it's like a little bit less diverse than like Wootton specifically. Like it's but I would say like in terms of perspectives, I feel like more welcomed at Georgetown than like I know that at Wootton I felt a little bit sometimes like not as proud to like be like South Asian, or like I felt a little bit more like suppressed in that regard. But then coming into college, I think it's just like, college in general, but like I know that Georgetown is like really welcoming of like different cultures and different religions and backgrounds. So I feel like a lot more open about it, like, now that I'm in college. And I'll say that there are people from like all over the country and especially like all over the world, which has been like a really interesting thing. Like it's really like cool to know that like if I ever want to go to like New York City, I have like friends who live there, or like I'm Indian, and usually when I would go to India, I would just be like visiting like family, but now I actually have like friends who like my own friends there. So I think that's one of the like the really cool parts of like college. And I think I would say Georgetown, because of like its international like affairs, because it's like really strong in that, it does attract a lot of like international students, which makes for like really interesting like conversations.
That's great. And it doesn't seem like the different minority groups are segregated. It's like everyone's interacting.
Yeah, I'll say also, I think this might also be like a college thing in general. Like Sophia, like feel free to like confirm, or but like I've also noticed that like there's a lot more, at least at Wootton, I noticed that people were a little bit more like segregated sometimes. And also friend groups in high school seem to be also like segregated like gender wise. But like I've noticed in college, like people are like friends with everyone, like guys and girls. Like I think people like mature a bit when they come to college.
Yeah.
Well, I have two things to say. to what you said about like meeting people, because I mean I'm in an international campus, so I'm from America and there's a bunch of people from America here, but like I have a guy in my global politics class from Lebanon, and there's a girl that lives on my floor and she's from Georgia, like the state. I mean, not the state, wow, the country. Like you just see so many different people, and like there, I know there's a couple people in my dorm also from Italy, and like it's just so cool to see and to talk to so many like cultures. About what was the second thing is, oh, for me, so this campus here is very small. I'm going to St. Louis University in Madrid, so the school itself has like about 1,000 people, which is less than Wootton. And my program, there's only 50 kids that came from Delaware to Spain. I mean, because that's like how much the program could hold. And that's the biggest, I think, like shock that I'm going to get back. Cause I mean, I'm going to University of Delaware, so it's a big state school. And I have still been in a pretty confined group of people. Like all the people that like in my program, I know really well. I have conversations with all of them. I'm going to get to campus and I have 5,000 people in my class, and I will not have that same sort of intimacy. But I think that's a good part of it, because with having so little people, what Shrutha was saying, it's kind of some people here who haven't matured yet still have that little high school mindset, and getting out into a bigger area, like, and there's still like some high school like related drama type stuff, and going out into like a bigger campus with more people, it's gonna diversify your relationships, which is very beneficial just for you personally and for everyone else. So yeah.
Yeah, I see Deb's two questions in the chat, so maybe we can like get to that. It's
So
like, oh yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
I was typing, sorry, about the question about internships. So I got my internship for this summer, my senior to college summer, from connections just that I've had. But for like, for example, I'm a psych major and a Spanish major. So I get emails from those departments with different opportunities for internships for labs. There's honestly so many. Like I honestly haven't applied to anything because I'm abroad and I cannot think about the summer yet. But there are opportunities that the college gives you. There is not necessarily a program that deals with like putting you into an internship, but it is pretty accessible to get a scholarship just from not a scholarship, an internship from your department. Or if you're interested in a certain topic department, emailing that professor or the head of the department. That's how I actually got my first one. I was at George Washington, another university in DC. I had an internship with the head of the neuropsychology department. And I just emailed her and I was like, hey, I'm very interested in psychology. I would really love to get an opportunity to learn more about this. Can I join your lab? And she was like, yeah, sure. And it's reach out. That's a big thing also I've learned. The worst thing that someone says is no. And that is so far from the worst thing that can happen. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
Yeah, okay, so what I have to say for this question, it might take a while, but yeah, definitely agree with what Sophia said about like connections through like teachers. I'll say that, like, for example, I was in a class when I first came to Georgetown. I wanted to major in healthcare policy. I've kind of like changed from that, but I was originally in a class that was like the intro class for healthcare policy, and the professor, he's like extremely well connected. He's like now the undersecretary to like the chief of staff to the undersecretary of the veteran affairs. He just has like a lot of connections. And so on the last day of class, he was like, if you guys ever need me for anything, like just shoot me your resume and I can like send it to someone else for you to talk to them. I feel like, professors themselves won't like get you the internship, but I'm very like almost always they'll at least like direct you to someone who you can talk to, and slowly you can get like knowledge about like a field, and then maybe from there like you can try and get like an internship. most universities have like a pretty good like career center where you can go and like have them look over your resume, or you can they can help you like polish up your resume. They can also give you advice. I know at least for Georgetown, I'm sure a ton of other schools do this. They also have like their career center send out newsletters. So even though I haven't like and formally like begun like searching for like a summer internship, I'm like subscribed to some of those newsletters, and just like the little tidbits of knowledge that I get are like really helpful for like when I do actually like begin that process. So obviously like there is a career center, and like I know that for us the career center like also lists out some specific opportunities that you could like apply to if you wanted to. You can definitely like ask them like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of internship, what is your advice for it, or do you know where I can look? And then they can direct you to the resources that you need for that. Through professors is like also a really good way. But also I think after getting to college, I think sometimes the Wootton mindset is that sometimes you need an internship every summer after like the school year. And I kind of had that mindset at first, but after coming to college, I've kind of changed it a bit more. Like summers are valuable in like a number of different ways. I know some people who are pre-med want to take certain classes over the summer so that they don't have to take like organic chemistry during the school year. Some people want to graduate early, so they'll take classes during the summer. Some people, college is really expensive, and sometimes having a paid job that gives you a lot of like, experience, like a different kind of experience is valuable. Other people want to do like a summer study abroad program. So there's like, when you get to college, there's like different ways you can spend your summer, and like an internship isn't just one way. And then the next question was like, how many AP credits were you able to transfer over? I was kind of surprised. I was able to transfer like quite a few actually. Some of it was like I was able to actually like complete requirements at like Georgetown. So for example, I would just kind of out there, I think that some of the most helpful AP classes to take credit wise are like any of the calcs, and like BC Calc or AB Calc, and also like AP Lang, because I was able to get done with like, I don't have to take math, I don't have to take writing. I don't, because of like AP World, I don't have to do like one of my histories. But I would say for in other situations, like for example, AP Bio or AP Chem, they wouldn't let me like use it to like fulfill a requirement, but I just got like that number of credits towards my degree, which is nice because it potentially shortens the number of like classes I have to take at Georgetown.
So that's very interesting because mine was the opposite. So I transferred I still like, it was the same I could do in the sense of like some credits like I fulfilled like requirements, and some just helped like my major. So I was able to transfer all of my credits except for like all my 4s and 5s. I was able to transfer. I'm a psych major, I'm humanities, so my bio credit fulfilled a bio and a lab, like a 5-credit course that I would have had to take. It got fulfilled because I got a 4 on the AP bio exam. I placed into a higher Spanish because I passed the AP Spanish exam. However, like Shrutha said that her English credit, her English like exam sufficed, mine did not. So I got a 4 or 5 on AP Lang, and I got the credit for it. It was considered like an elective, but it didn't count towards like the English seminar that I had to take to fulfill the requirements for English. However, it still didn't count as an elective credits, so it's still added up. So I came to college with 30 credits, which is a lot. Like it's very beneficial, and that's like the reason that I'm double majoring right now. I'm thinking of doing a double minor, or I know like a minor, or even maybe double, and having those credits helps. But Wootton puts a lot of pressure on that, and you do not need that to do amazing in college. That's one thing.
I know that sometimes there's a perception, because a lot of people at Wootton take AP classes, that when you go to college, everyone took AP classes. I was kind of surprised when I got to college and I realized that I was actually one, like there were some people in like my classes who like didn't have APs like offered at their school. And I will say like having those AP credits and just the knowledge from those AP classes, like really, it did come in clutch. Like for example, AP Lang, you do like timed essays. And I will say like in college, I only had to do like a couple timed essays. For me, it's more like, you get like 3 weeks to do an essay. But after going from like doing timed essays, it feels a lot easier to like write a longer essay if you're like kind of short on time. Or, taking AP Bio, if you think that you might want to do medicine, it's like helpful to just have that knowledge before you go into intro bio if they don't take that credit. So I will say like taking AP classes was really helpful and I'm glad I did it, but don't like think that you need to have like 15, because I say like people at college, like they come in with like all different kinds of backgrounds. And so it's not like as rigid like that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, if you are interested, 100% take it. If you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, it's not worth the mental strain.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 questions. This one, what set us both for to apply to college? I'm gonna also do a hot take here. I think that Wootton did a pretty bad job at helping us prepare for college, like prepare to apply for college. We had a couple like counseling sessions, like as groups, but they weren't really in depth. I would say that honestly, it seems very overwhelming, but when you have someone explain it to you, it really isn't that bad. And I think there's a big conception for it to be stressful and crazy, and it is at times, but it doesn't have to be. So like, I think the biggest thing help for me, like asking your older siblings, older friends who have been through the process quite recently helps out a lot. Like my parents are both immigrants, so they like didn't go to college here, so they had no idea really how the process worked. So it was very like new to me and to my family. So I got a college counselor, but those are expensive and not everyone has the resources for that. But besides that, the most beneficial thing would have been talking to like older friends. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so I don't have older siblings, but like my friends' older siblings and getting info from them as well. Asking people in your life who, if they have any connections to who your major of like what you want to major in. For example, I had this one coach, and she had a friend who was a social work major, and I asked if I could talk to her, and I talked to her for like an hour. It gave me such great input on the major, on the job, what to expect, what I should do to prepare better. And it helped me out so much more than any college counselor, any school counselor ever has.
I think for me, there are a lot of ways to like approach this question, but I'll feel free to clarify in the chat, like if I'm interpreting right, but like what like materials like or like what I did to like apply.
Yeah, I don't know if
I don't know,
if I
like,
answered it the right way.
yeah, I don't know if you meant more like making your college list or like the actual like components of the application, but I'll take it as the components of the application. So obviously, like I'm sure Wootton like will like tells you all like the different things you need. But beyond that, I think what was really helpful for me was creating a narrative amongst like the different things I did. And so it's not like a formulaic thing where you go into it and you're like, okay, how can I seem like the most interesting, unique, like just you're by yourself, like you're a unique person and you have stories to tell. And so I think just looking at what you already do and forming connections between it. So for example, in high school, I did Model UN and I also was in the biology club. And I kind of used both of those to kind of show how I was really interested in policy, but also health. And then I started talking about how that like the experience of doing both clubs, even though they're on very different sides of like the humanities and sciences like spectrum, how that like kind of helped with my interest in like healthcare policy. So I think when it comes to like actually applying to college, spending time thinking about all the things you do, whether it's like extracurriculars or like the classes you've taken or like the stories you've had, like see what connects and see what kind of narrative or story you can make out of it. And that could be really good for like some of the essays you have. I think something else that helps you like to apply is just getting into a very like reflective mindset. So someone had previously, I told this to someone else, but if you can maybe get into the habit of like journaling, or maybe take a look at some of the essay prompts and just like think about it. Like don't stress out, don't stress, but like just get it in your head and just think about things like, okay, what is my community? What are the things I value? If you can just like be like reflective like that, I think it'll really help you when you actually like go to like write those essays, because you've already like done a lot of the work in your head and you have like, you're very grounded to yourself.
One quick tidbit I will add about the essays. Keep your voice. What Shrutha said is right. You are unique in yourself. And my college counselor would rewrite some of my college essays and be like, and make them sound more formal. And I would send in my original copy of my writing, my tone, my voice. Colleges want to hear that more than they want to hear a robot talking about like listing off what they did. They want to hear a narrative, and they want to hear your own personal voice. They want to make it interesting. I have a very like, not, I wouldn't say relaxed, but a very like, what's the word? I'm forgetting it now. When people talk, this is really bad. Conversational type of writing. Like I write very like more casual, and I applied to 11 schools, and this is going to tie into the question about into college interviews. I applied to 11 schools. They were all like, most of them were state schools. All 10 of them were state schools, or like, University of Chicago of Loyola, which is like a private school, but like still not super like prestigious. And I got into all of them, and I did not have to do any interviews. Like that wasn't even an option. However, I applied to Princeton as well, like for fun. I didn't think I was gonna get in, but I just wanted to like see if I could. And for that one, I had an interview with the alum of Princeton. And it was very relaxed. It was not some like suit and tie. Like I met with this woman, and she like had a baby in the background, like that was like hanging out. And she actually graduated a while ago and like lived in a foreign country, and she was just like, it was just like a very casual conversation. So in my experience, the only school that I had to do an interview with alumni for, even the only school that offered it, was Princeton, the Ivy League. But all the big schools of Delaware, there's 20,000 kids. Like there is no way they are going to interview all of them, which is why, again, it's important to create a narrative and your own personal voice in your essays.
Also to add on to like what like set me up well to apply to college, I think it's knowing exactly why you're applying to the colleges you're applying to, because it can get a little easy sometimes. And I definitely did this too. There are a lot of colleges that like Wootton kids, like just kids in general, will tend to apply to because they're big name schools. And so sometimes when the admission, like think about it like this, the admissions officers, they're going through thousands of applications. And a lot of people at the end of the day have similar GPAs, similar scores, kind of similar activities. So what makes it most compelling for them to admit you is if you kind of have demonstrated that you fit in with that school, or like that you have values that align with that school, or that you really would bring something to that school, and you'd be able to take advantage of the opportunities that school has. So I think when it comes to actually applying to the schools you want to, if you're kind of struggling to come up with a reason for why the school is on your list, that could be a reason that maybe that's not the best school for you to apply to. But if you're able to think about what the school offers, what their values are, and how that ties into the narrative that you've been thinking about for a whole year, I think not only will it make it easier to like apply to the school, and it'll like increase your chances of getting in, but also you'll be like getting into schools that actually are like a really good fit for you, which honestly, I think I remember seeing this on the counseling office wall. Like college isn't like a prize to be won, it's a match to be made. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. So I think what helps to set you up well for applying to college is actually knowing like what college might be a good match for you. And don't just apply to like a school because other people are applying to it, or because it has prestige, or because it's really popular. Like really, college is for you, like your own self journey, like at the end of the day. And then the question about, okay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add on to that. And I have a little bit like that is very true. And if you find, values, that's very, very important. I had a different experience because I had no idea what I wanted. I didn't know what like aspects of schools to look at. So I just applied to a bunch of like not a bunch, a decent amount of like bigger state schools that were on the more affordable side. And so if you have something in school that you love, that's amazing. But if you like don't know I was really stressed. A lot of people are like, oh my God, like, I went on campus. This is my dream school. Like I just felt so at home. I never had that feeling. I never really knew what I wanted. And even if that's all. Don't stress too much about it. Like you will find your place. And it's also college, especially bigger schools, even with 7,000 kids, like you will find your place. There are so many people and there are so many, programs, majors, clubs, everything that you'll find your space. And also things aren't so rigid. Like if your first choice school, like you get in, you don't like it, you can transfer. So I just wanted to speak to the other side of that. So yes, if 100% what everything that Shrutha said is very important. However, if you feel stressed because you don't have that, don't freak out over it, because I didn't have that. And I just went out on a limb and now I'm in Madrid and I'm having a really fun time. So
Yeah, I recommend, I think I saw this online, but bigger schools with like a lot of students, they tend to be really good, especially like if you're not as sure like what you want to do, like major wise, or like what your interests are, because like pretty much they'll have like almost every major there is. So if that's you, then like a bigger school might be like for you. And then the question about alumni interviews. So Georgetown did have an interview. And then a couple of other schools I applied to also had them. So I think that, first of all, I think a lot of people do get stressed out about the interview because it's the part that they feel like the least prepared for. But just remember that, the people who are interviewing you, they're not admissions officers, they're regular people. And so when admissions officers are looking at like the comments that alumni have made about you, they're not looking at those comments like it was another admissions officer saying it. Like they recognize that it's a person who might have their flaws. So that's why admissions officers don't like weigh the interview like as much as they're weighing like the essays or like your extracurriculars or like your GPA, like because that's what the admissions officer themselves is like reviewing. But I will say for my interview, I was really nervous beforehand. And so what I did to prepare is I like looked online for like some of the common questions that would be asked. My interview was over Zoom, but like I think now most interviews are like in person. But I looked at some of the questions that were on the internet. Some of the common ones and the ones that I got asked were things like, I got asked like about my background, like, where are my parents from? Like, where do I live? I know sometimes with alumni, they pair you with someone who's also in the area. So that's like a really good talking point because most of them know Wootton or like know the like neighborhood. So it's kind of like a familiarity kind of thing. They also asked me about the classes I took. Things like what I did in high school, like what like extracurriculars I had done, what I wanted to major in, and obviously like why Georgetown, or like why like do you want to go to like this specific school? And then at the very end, they gave me like a chance to like ask my own questions, and I think that's a really like good place to show that you're actually interested in the school. Don't ask questions that are like easily Googleable, and also I wouldn't ask questions that directly show something bad about a school. So like if you've heard that a school, I don't know, has really bad food, like don't ask them like how bad is the dining hall food? Like there are ways you can ask questions that kind of show that don't like show the negative parts of the school, because then the alumni is going to think that you're actually like you don't like the school. So but I would ask like questions. I think some of the like good questions you can ask like alumni are like what makes you proud to be a Georgetown alumni, and then they can like go into that, or things like that, or like how influential do you think like your school was and like where you are today, things that get like alumni talking about, like the alumnus like talking about yourself, because people like to talk about themselves. So yeah, I know it seems stressful, but honestly, like looking back, I don't like it really ended up feeling like a conversation. And I don't think like people who are interviewing, they're not doing it because they love to torture high school students. Like they're doing it because they love their school and they want to see like people get in. So just remember that like it's a normal human at the end of the day, and they just like want to have a conversation about you and like why you're applying to that school.
That's a very big thing. If you have an interview, prepare, like research the school like in depth and prepare why you like that school. So like I had a couple of supplementals that asked me like specific questions like why Delaware, why Wisconsin, why why these certain schools. And for those, it for interviews specifically, because you have to be more on the spot, research specific aspects of your school beforehand. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I also think I was asked, I've heard of friends being asked, like, have you visited the campus before? And we were like in a year where it was kind of hard to visit campus. And also even now, like it is still some, whether it's like time, money, energy, like it can be hard to visit campus. So I think like having an answer to that can be good. So I know some answers some people said were like I wasn't able to, but like I had like watched a lot of YouTube videos, and not gonna lie, like watching YouTube videos, people who go to that school, they'll like film a day in their life at that school, like things like that are like helpful to watch to like learn more about the campus and like things there.
So I'd like to ask one last question, which is if you were going to give one or two pieces of advice, final piece of advice to someone, going into their application or their first year of college, what's the one or two things that you haven't said yet that you'd like to make sure someone knows?
I think the number one thing I would tell people applying, but also freshmen going into college, is that you are a student at this college, but you're also a person and you're going to be here for 4 years. So I think when people are like, especially considering like, the way you get introduced to the idea of college, especially like it is through your high school. So sometimes there is a tendency to like view college as just an academic experience. So I think that's kind of the reason why, especially, and obviously, Montgomery County tends to be like a really high performing county. So people tend to look at the prestige of a school a lot and to really be drawn to that when they're applying. I think the social experience is like really undervalued. And so I'll say this, like going, I wish I knew this in the application process and also like going into freshman year. But when I wake up every day, I don't think like, oh, I go to this school. Oh, this is like, I don't think about that. I think about if I'm happy. I think about, who I'm going to be with that day. I think about friends. I think about what I'm going to do. Those are the things that like actually like make up your day-to-day experience. And college is more than like an academic experience. It's a lot of personal growth, meeting people, becoming independent, finding yourself. And so what I guess what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is that the number one advice I would give to people is don't just look at like the academics of a school, also look at the social life. Look at, if you can ask people who go to that school, ask them, are they happy or are they stressed out most of the time? How do they make friends? Do they make friends through people who they live with, through clubs, through classes? Is it through Greek life? What do people do to have fun? Do they like go out into like the area? Do they stay on campus mostly? Like, I think that like will give you a really good sense of what your actual like experience might be day to day. And like I think for freshmen going into college, remember that you are a student, but you're also a person, you're a friend, you're going to be a roommate. Like you're so much more than just a student. And so just keeping that in mind, I think is helpful. Like don't just look at the academics of a school, like also look at like all the other things, like the social experience too.
I want to say, this is very cliche, but I feel like especially in MCPS, like we're saying, like it's very based on prestige, based on like knowing exactly what you want. It's okay to not have everything figured out. Like I think that I felt like I needed to have everything figured out at every single moment of my day, have everything planned. That's not true. You have, again, you're here first of all, you're an undergrad for 3 to however many years it takes you to complete it. You take your time. Feel like take it in, like, and even during the college application process, like, like I didn't really know I didn't have a dream school. I didn't know what I wanted, and everything, it will go into place. And don't be afraid of change in the sense of if you wanted one life course, like one path and things end up falling in another path, that's okay. Like everything will get figured out at some point.
And I would also say maybe as like a second piece of advice is, when you're in high school, you might have a certain idea of what you want to do. Maybe it's like major or maybe the kind of things you want your college to have. Maybe you think you want your college to have a really good sports scene, or maybe you don't care. Maybe you want your school to have Greek life, or maybe you don't care. So definitely, like, when you're applying to colleges and like when you're picking, make sure that like that college is going to fulfill what you currently want. But also I recommend picking somewhere that will like grow with you. So for example, when I was applying, I didn't think I would care a lot about like the sports scene, but then coming to college, it is something that like I like going to basketball games. So I like that, Georgetown has basketball games. But if I went in with the mindset of like that I had in high school, where I was like, I don't care at all, I'll go anywhere, like I don't mind what like sports scene it has, then when I came to college and I realized that I actually do kind of care about having like a sports game to go to, I would be in a situation where like I wouldn't have that. But like, so what I guess I'm trying to say is like make sure that like wherever you're going like will fulfill like what you currently want, if you have an idea of what you want, but like it can grow in case you change your interests.
This may sound very like self-explanatory, but it is something I have had an experience with. Make sure that the schools you apply to or commit to have the specific major that you want. For example, I applied to Delaware with the psychology degree. Oh my God, Dylan. Sorry, okay, let me finish. I applied to my school with a psychology degree and I realized that I wanted to do more social work, and Delaware does not have a social work degree. And that's not the end of the world, but it's just something that I was at, like, it's just like, if there are a couple like more like niche, I guess, like majors or minors that you're interested in that are like make it or break it, look at the course catalogs of the schools before you apply, if those are like very, very important to you.
Shrutha and Sophia, I want to thank both of you. You guys were amazing. Like, you guys really just led this breakout room. I was here looking at the chat a bit, but I'm very impressed with your responses. I agree with everything you said. I have been out of college a long time, but I feel like it's recent enough that I hear your words and I second them. So I would encourage everyone in the breakout room to write down those email addresses and shoot over any questions you have to them.
Best of luck to all of you in the application and decision process.
Yes, you guys will get through this, I promise.